For many people, the greatest battle they will ever fight is the one within their own mind, not against the world, not against external challenges, but against the silent war raging in their own thoughts. And the tragedy is that most never realize they've been misidentifying the real enemy. They spend years believing that something is broken inside them, that their thoughts are proof they're not enough, that their fears, doubts, and insecurities are signs they were born with something lacking. But that's not true. The truth is far more liberating. Your mind is not your enemy. It's your gateway, your portal to everything you want, your access point to power, to vision, to change, to healing, to clarity, but only when you take control of it. The mind is neutral by nature. It doesn't come pre-programmed for success or failure. It simply reflects and magnifies what you allow into it. It will accept the blueprint you give it, whether that blueprint is chaos or structure, fear or faith, confusion or purpose. That choice is yours. But the mind itself isn't working against you. It's doing exactly what it's designed to do: absorb, calculate, respond, and replay. When you allow toxic beliefs to enter, it multiplies them. When you allow empowering ideas to take root, it amplifies them too. It follows orders. And too many people have spent their lives unknowingly giving it destructive commands. We were never taught this in school. No one sits us down and says, hey, your thoughts aren't always true. You can question them, you can challenge them, you can replace them. Instead, we're conditioned to believe that whatever pops into our head must be real, that whatever inner narrative shows up first must be who we are, that our inner critic must be speaking the truth. But the mind is a mirror. It reflects what you feed it. If you spend your days listening to negativity, comparing yourself, avoiding discomfort, and giving in to every emotional impulse, your mind won't correct you. It will conform, it will shape itself around whatever pattern you live in, and then reinforce that pattern until it feels like identity. That's why people feel stuck, not because they are powerless, but because they've surrendered the power of direction. Your mind is like a compass, but it needs a destination. If you don't set the direction consciously, it will drift aimlessly. And drifting always leads to one place: regret. Because an unmanaged mind will always default to the familiar. It will pull you toward comfort even when comfort is killing you. It will whisper reasons to stay small. It will rationalize your procrastination. It will keep playing reruns of your past because it's easier than facing the unknown. Not because it hates you, but because it's trying to protect you from pain, from risk, from failure. But in doing so, it also protects you from growth. This is why people find themselves repeating the same patterns, stuck in the same cycles, saying the same things like, I always mess up, or nothing ever changes, or I guess this is just how I am. No, that's not how you are. That's just what your mind has been rehearsing. And repetition becomes belief. Belief becomes behavior. Behavior becomes destiny. So if you want to change the course of your life, you must change the instructions you're feeding your mind. And before you can change those instructions, you must first understand that your mind is not out to destroy you. It's simply responding to the information and the environment it's been given. Think about this. If you gave a high-performance car to someone who never learned to drive, and that person crashes into a wall, do you blame the car? Of course not. The vehicle wasn't at fault. The driver didn't have the skills, the awareness, or the discipline to navigate the power they were given. Your mind is that high-performance vehicle, powerful, responsive, capable of extraordinary things, but dangerous if left on autopilot. Without awareness, without intentional direction, it will crash you into walls of fear, insecurity, and regret over and over again. But here's where the shift happens: when you stop fighting your mind and start leading it. When you stop blaming yourself for having negative thoughts and start training yourself to redirect them. When you stop treating your thoughts as truth and start treating them as options. That's when the power returns. That's when the mind stops being a battlefield and starts becoming a bridge to the person you were meant to become. not a prison to the person you've been. We live in a world that constantly tries to hijack our attention, exploit our thoughts, and manipulate our mindset. From the moment we wake up, we're bombarded with noise, fear-based headlines, comparison-fueled social media, manipulative marketing, chaotic environments. If we are not intentional, our mind becomes a sponge for everything unfiltered, unchallenged, and untrue. And in that chaos, we begin to lose ourselves. Not because the mind is cruel, but because it was never designed to lead without a leader. You are that leader. You are the only one who can stand at the gateway and decide what enters and what does not. You are the only one who can say, this belief no longer serves me. This fear doesn't define me. This voice in my head is not the final authority over my future. When you claim that role, everything begins to change, not overnight, not easily, but permanently, because your mind will follow the direction you set. But only if you take the wheel. Everything you've built or failed to build began in your mind. Every step you've taken, every word you've spoken, every relationship you've nurtured or lost, every risk you've taken or avoided, all of it was first conceived in thought. Before the decision, before the action, before the outcome, there was a thought. That's what all begins. And yet most people treat their thoughts like passing scenery. They think what they think, feel what they feel, without ever realizing those thoughts are silently drafting the blueprint for their future. Thoughts are more than mental noise. They are commands sent to your subconscious. They are instructions whispered to your identity. And over time, those repeated instructions become your truth, whether or not they're rooted in reality. A person who constantly thinks, I can't, doesn't just hold a negative opinion. They're setting limitations on what actions they'll even attempt. A person who repeatedly thinks, I'm not worthy, they won't just feel insecure, they'll subconsciously sabotage opportunities that require confidence, success, and self-belief. It doesn't matter how talented you are, how much potential you hold, how big your dreams are. If your thoughts are small, your life will shrink to fit them. You will live inside the borders of your inner dialogue. That's the power of the mind. It's not just thinking, it's shaping. It's designing your worldview, your habits, your expectations, and your future. We've all known people who had every advantage, intelligence, connections, even resources, but still managed to go nowhere in life. Why? Because their thinking was poisoned with fear, entitlement, or excuses. And we've also seen the opposite, individuals who came from nothing, who were counted out by everyone around them, yet climbed impossible mountains. Not because they were lucky, but because they refused to think in limits. They trained their minds to dwell in possibility. They understood a simple truth: your life will always rise or fall to meet the quality of your thoughts. Now here's what's even more powerful. Thoughts are habits. And like any habit, they can be changed. You may not be able to stop the first negative thought from appearing, but you have full control over what happens next. Do you feed it? Do you believe it? Do you replay it until it hardens into identity? Or do you challenge it, reframe it, and replace it with something aligned with the life you actually want to build? Your thoughts are not fixed. They are programmable. But you must be intentional about what you program, because if you don't choose your thoughts, the world will. And the world is not in the business of empowering your future. It will sell you fear, it will sell you distractions, it will train you to think like a victim, to doubt your worth, to live in comparison, to focus on lack, unless you fight back. Unless you rise and say, this mind belongs to me, you will find yourself living a life you never consciously chose. This is not about positive thinking in the shallow surface level sense. It's about deliberate thinking, choosing thoughts that build rather than break, thoughts that align with your purpose, thoughts that produce courage instead of cowardice. Because thoughts produce energy, and energy becomes momentum. And once momentum takes over, your life begins to move in the direction of what you've rehearsed in your mind. Ask yourself honestly, what have you been rehearsing fear, failure, regret, or faith, possibility, growth. Your destiny is being shaped in the quiet moments no one sees. The way you talk to yourself when things go wrong. The beliefs you choose to anchor in when you're alone. The stories you tell yourself about what's possible. That's where the future is being built. Not in some far-off event, but in the factory of thought you operate every single day. Thoughts are not just private. They're powerful. They will show up in your posture, your decisions, your relationships, your finances, your dreams, and in time they will show up in your reality. Most people don't destroy their lives with one catastrophic decision. Most don't wake up one morning and decide to throw away their potential, their peace, their relationships, or their dreams. That's not how failure usually works. No, failure is quiet. It's slow, it's subtle. It's the result of neglect, of small things left unattended, of tiny compromises that add up, of consistent inaction. And nowhere is this more dangerous than in the realm of the mind. Neglect isn't loud. It doesn't demand your attention. It doesn't make headlines. It whispers. It whispers, it's okay to skip today. It whispers, you'll deal with it later. It whispers, it's not that bad. And while you listen to those whispers, your thoughts start to shift. Not in a dramatic way, not all at once, but gradually, invisibly, your mindset begins to corrode. You miss one day of gratitude and nothing feels different. You allow one negative thought to replay and the world doesn't end. You put off that difficult conversation with yourself and no alarm goes off. But then it happens again and again. You push your inner life to the side, promising yourself you'll get to it eventually. And by the time you look up, your confidence is gone, your vision is blurry, your purpose feels distant. That's how neglect works. It doesn't steal your life, it lets you give it away, piece by piece, hour by hour, thought by thought. It's not that your mind suddenly turns against you. It's that you stopped tending to it. You stopped feeding it truth. You stopped checking in on your thinking. You stopped challenging the doubts when they showed up. And just like a house left alone for too long, the decay didn't happen all at once, but the damage became undeniable. People often wait for crisis to change. They wait until the pain becomes unbearable. But the wise don't wait. The wise understand that mental neglect is like a slow leak in the foundation. You may not hear it, you may not see the damage at first, but eventually the weight of life will press down on that foundation, and if it's weak, it will crack. And when it does, no surface level motivation will save it, because neglect doesn't just leave things undone, it rots the inner strength you'll need when the storm comes. Your mind is soil. If you don't plant in it intentionally, weeds will grow by default. That's the law of nature. And the law of mindset is no different. If you're not feeding it faith, hope, discipline, vision, then you're leaving it open to fear, doubt, excuses, and bitterness. You don't get to opt out of the process. You're either managing your mind or it's managing you. And if it's managing you, it's doing so with old programming, outdated beliefs, and unchecked emotion. Neglect is not about laziness. It's about a lack of priority. You've been trained to prioritize everything else, your work, your image, your obligations, but not your thoughts, not your beliefs, not your inner clarity. So you show up in the world reactive, insecure, mentally scattered. You're not broken, you're not weak, you're just neglected. And anything neglected long enough begins to malfunction. But that's the thing, mental neglect doesn't just hurt you, it affects everyone you love. Because when your thinking is clouded, you love with fear. You lead with doubt. You speak from your wounds. You start building walls instead of bridges. You begin shrinking in moments where you were born to expand. And it's all rooted in the simple choice you make every day to tend to your mind or not. You wouldn't ignore a leaking roof in your home. You wouldn't neglect your physical health for years and expect to be strong. So why do we expect the mind, arguably the most powerful tool we've been given, to function at its peak when we haven't invested a single minute in managing it? Neglect doesn't ask for much. That's why it's dangerous. It only asks that you do nothing, that you leave the thoughts unchallenged, that you scroll instead of reflect, that you numb instead of feel, that you coast instead of grow. And eventually, it wins. Most people don't understand this at first, because it sounds like a contradiction. How can discipline, something that sounds restrictive, create freedom, something that feels limitless? But that's the paradox that separates the struggling from the successful. Because the truth is, discipline doesn't take your freedom, it protects it. It expands it. It builds it brick by brick, day by day. Without it, you're not free. You're just drifting. You're not liberated. You're trapped by your own impulses, reactions, and emotions. We live in a culture that worships comfort. It teaches you that freedom means doing whatever you feel like, sleeping in when you want, skipping the hard work, saying, I'll do it later whenever resistance shows up. But that's not freedom. That's short-term pleasure disguised as liberty. And the price is high. Your dreams, your confidence, your peace. Because when you live without discipline, your emotions become your master. Your habits become your prison. And soon your life starts shrinking to fit whatever mood you're in. Discipline is what pulls you out of that trap. Discipline is what says, I don't feel like it, but I'll do it anyway because my future depends on it. Discipline is what shows up when motivation disappears. And believe me, motivation will disappear. It's not designed to stay. It's emotional, it's fleeting, it's unpredictable. But discipline is loyal. Discipline doesn't care how you feel, it cares where you're going. It doesn't wait for perfect timing, it creates it. And here's what's powerful. Discipline isn't just about doing hard things. It's about deciding who you want to be and then proving it to yourself every single day. Every act of discipline is a vote for the future you. Every time you choose structure over chaos, clarity over confusion, consistency over comfort, you're telling your mind, I am in control. You're reminding yourself that you're not a prisoner of your past or your environment or your emotion. You're the one steering this ship. You'll hear people say they want freedom. Freedom of time, freedom of mind, financial freedom, emotional freedom. But what they don't realize is that freedom is the reward for discipline, not the replacement for it. You want freedom with your health? Be disciplined in what you eat, how you move, how you rest. You want freedom with your time? Be disciplined with your schedule, your priorities, your focus. You want freedom in your thoughts? Be disciplined in what you feed your mind, how you speak to yourself, what beliefs you allow to take root. Without discipline, everything decays, dreams fade, goals stay goals, potential stays untapped. Without discipline, the mind wanders into regret. Because when you know deep down that you could have done more, been more, pushed harder, focused better, but you didn't, that regret becomes a weight you carry, not because you failed, but because you gave up control. And that's what discipline really gives you, control. Not over everything, but over what matters most, your choices. And in a world that's constantly trying to pull your attention, your energy, and your values in every direction, being in control of your decisions is one of the most powerful freedoms you'll ever experience. Now, discipline isn't sexy. It's not glamorous. It won't give you a quick dopamine rush, but it will build a life worth living. It will give you pride you can't fake, confidence you didn't borrow, and progress you actually earned. And when the storms come, and they will, discipline will hold you steady. While everyone else is scrambling for motivation, you'll already be in motion. While others are waiting to feel ready, you'll already be winning battles behind the scenes. Because discipline doesn't just change what you do, it changes who you become. And once you become someone who honors your word, respects your time, and holds yourself to a higher standard, that changes everything. Emotions are real, they are powerful, and they are not your enemy, But the moment you allow them to lead your life, they will betray you. Emotions are not meant to drive the car, they're meant to alert you, to inform you, to signal that something within or around you needs attention. But too many people hand over the keys of their lives to feelings that were never built to lead. They live in reaction, not response. They obey every emotional impulse as if it were law. And in doing so, they lose control over their direction. The truth is, emotions lie. Not always, but often enough that trusting them blindly is dangerous. Fear can feel like truth, even when it's just anxiety disguised as logic. Anger can feel like righteousness, even when it's just pain unprocessed. Sadness can feel like permanence, even when it's just a moment begging for reflection. If you don't pause to challenge your emotions, they will write a false narrative and convince you it's your identity. But understand this, your emotions are trying to help you, not hurt you. They're messengers. They show up to say, pay attention here. That pang of jealousy, it's not about someone else winning, it's a signal that you've neglected your own potential. That flood of frustration, it might mean your boundaries have been crossed or your energy's being wasted on something unaligned. That wave of sadness, it could be grief, loss, or a warning that you've strayed too far from what matters to you. Emotions speak in volume, but not always in clarity. It's your job to interpret, to step back, to say, what are you trying to tell me, instead of what are you trying to make me do? Because when you let emotions make decisions for you, logic gets drowned out. Purpose gets pushed aside. You react instead of respond. And often the reaction becomes something you regret. Words you wish you hadn't said, actions you wish you hadn't taken, decisions that cost more than you could afford. The strongest people aren't those who feel the least. They're the ones who've trained themselves to feel fully but act wisely. They know how to sit with discomfort without becoming it. They know how to let the storm pass through without letting it break them. And they've learned that just because something feels urgent emotionally doesn't mean it needs an immediate reaction. Sometimes the most powerful move is to pause, to breathe, to wait for clarity before acting. You see, when you control your emotions, you're not suppressing them, you're leading them. There's a big difference. Suppression buries pain. Leadership understands it. Suppression creates shame. Leadership brings truth. When you suppress emotions, you deny a part of yourself. When you lead them, you elevate yourself. That's real strength, not the absence of feeling, but the mastery of it. We've all been there, snapping in anger, withdrawing in fear, spiraling in doubt. And in those moments, we often feel powerless, like we're being dragged by something stronger than us. But emotions don't have to be stronger than you. They're not the enemy. The problem isn't that you feel, it's that you haven't learned how to translate what you feel into action that serves your future. That takes awareness. It takes emotional literacy. It takes the willingness to separate what you feel from who you are. Because who you are is more than a reaction. You are the one who chooses what to do with the signals life sends. The emotion may rise without permission, but the decision, that's still yours. That moment between feeling and action, that's where your power lives. That's where maturity is built. That's where leaders are made. And if you can learn to hold space between the emotion and the decision, you gain leverage over your life that no one can take from you. So when anger shows up, don't suppress it. Interrogate it. When fear knocks, don't run. Ask what it's protecting. When sadness speaks, don't know it. Listen for what it's mourning, because behind every emotion is information, wisdom, a message. But the message is only useful if you're the one interpreting it, not blindly obeying it. There is a voice inside you. It speaks when no one is around. It echoes in the silence, in the dark, in the stillness of your quiet moments. And whether you realize it or not, that voice is either building you or breaking you. It's either your greatest coach or your cruelest critic. And here's the hard truth. If you don't train it, it will turn against you. That voice is shaped by years of repetition, what you've heard, what you've believed, what you've allowed. Some of it isn't even yours. It came from parents, teachers, peers, society. It came from wounds you never healed, failures you never processed, shame you never confronted. And if you're not careful, you'll confuse that voice with your identity. You'll say, that's just the way I think, but no, it's the way you've been trained to think. And if you were trained to think one way, you can be trained to think another. You see, no one arrives at self-belief by accident. It's not luck, it's not genetic, it's not reserved for the special few. It's the product of repetition, reinforcement, and responsibility. It's the result of learning to speak to yourself the way someone who loves you would. Because if you're constantly tearing yourself down, judging yourself harshly, minimizing your efforts, then you become your own abuser. And that voice is doing more damage than anyone else ever could. Think about it. How many times have you succeeded but heard it's not good enough? How often have you tried something new and immediately thought, you're going to fail? How many mornings have you looked in the mirror and focused on everything you hated instead of everything you've survived? It's not truth. That's programming. And unless you retrain it, it becomes your prison. Your inner voice sets the tone for your entire life. It determines how you show up, how you recover, how you push through difficulty. If that voice says, you're not capable, you won't risk anything worthwhile. If it says, you always mess things up, you'll live with hesitation, always waiting for the fall. But if it says, you can handle this, everything shifts, you stand taller, you breathe deeper, you move forward even with fear. That one sentence changes your emotional posture, and your emotional posture shapes your results. But you don't just wake up one day with a positive inner voice. You have to train it deliberately, like a muscle, like a skill. You have to catch yourself when the negativity starts. You have to challenge it, replace it, redirect it, not with blind positivity, but with empowered truth. Instead of I always fail, say I've failed before, but I've learned. Instead of I'm not enough, say I'm growing every day. Instead of nobody cares, say I choose to show up with value, no matter who's watching. Because here's what's real. The world already throws enough resistance at you. Life is hard enough. People are critical enough. The last thing you need is to be fighting a war inside your own head. Your mind should be your sanctuary, not a battlefield. And that starts with who you allow to speak the most in your life. And no one speaks to you more than you do. And don't think this only matters in big moments. It matters most in the small, invisible ones. When the alarm goes off and your voice says, just sleep in. When you mess up and your voice says, typical, you never get it right. When you stand in front of an opportunity and your voice says, you're not qualified. Those moments shape your trajectory, not because the voice is right, but because you believed it. If you want to elevate your life, elevate your inner dialogue. Train it, feed it, guard it. Because the voice you speak to yourself with becomes the standard you live by. And over time, your life will rise or fall to the level of that standard. You win or lose first in your mind. Before a champion ever steps onto the field, they've already won in their mind. Before a leader makes a hard decision, before a survivor overcomes the pain, before a dreamer turns the vision into reality, victory has already been decided in one place, the mind. That's where the battle begins. That's where the outcome is shaped. You don't win because you show up. You win because you prepared your mind long before the challenge ever appeared. And you don't lose because you failed. You lose because somewhere along the line, your mind agreed to give up. Success is not just about talent. It's not just about resources, connections, or good timing. It's about mental conditioning. It's about inner resilience. Because life will test you repeatedly. And in those moments when it's hard, when it's uncertain, when fear rises up and everything in you wants to quit, what matters most is the conversation going on inside your head. That's where winners are made. That's where losers are born. Think about it. Every breakthrough you've ever had started with a decision. And every decision began in the mind. You decided to push through. You decided to try again. You decided not to give in to doubt. And because you decided it internally, you were able to manifest it externally. But if your mind is filled with hesitation, if your thoughts are filled with reasons why you can't, why you're not ready, why it won't work, then your body, your choices, and your effort will follow that same pattern. The mind sets the thermostat of your potential. If you believe you're limited, you'll live limited. If you believe you're doomed, you'll act like it. But if you believe you're capable, even when the odds are against you, something awakens. You walk differently. You respond instead of react. You fight longer. Because somewhere inside, you've already seen the victory. And now your actions are just catching up to that internal picture. You ever wonder why two people in the same situation can respond so differently? One folds, one rises. One complains, one creates, one blames, one builds. Same pressure, same environment. The difference isn't what's happening around them, it's what's happening inside them. The one who wins is the one who refuses to give power to fear. The one who wins is the one who chooses focus over frustration, belief over bitterness, resolve over retreat. The problem is we often let circumstances train our minds. We let disappointment shape our self-imagining of failure, redefine our value. We let rejection harden us into someone smaller. And before we know it, the mind becomes a mirror of every setback we've experienced. But if you're going to rise, if you're going to step into the life that belongs to you, you must take back that control. You must stop letting your past write the script for your future. Because every day you wake up, you're writing the next chapter. And it starts with your thoughts. Your mind is either your greatest weapon or your greatest weakness. You train it through repetition, through vision, through discipline. You train it by what you feed it, what you allow it to dwell on, and what you refuse to tolerate. You cannot afford to entertain doubt, comparison, self-pity, or fear. Not because those things aren't real, but because they're dangerous when left unchecked. They don't just sit in your head. They spread, they infect your actions, they kill your courage. And if you don't eliminate them, they will eliminate you from the race before you even take the first step. So ask yourself, what game is your mind playing? Is it playing to win or to avoid losing? Is it focused on what's possible or stuck on what's missing? Is it filled with stories of power or stories of pain? Because make no mistake, the battle is real, but so is your authority to win it. So now you see it clearly. Your mind is the command center of your life. The thoughts you allow, the beliefs you protect, the emotions you entertain, and the voice you amplify within you. All of it builds the life you are living. You don't rise by accident. You rise because you choose to. You win because you decide to. And you grow because you take control of what happens behind your eyes and between your ears. You are not a slave to fear. You are not the sum of past failures. You are not defined by how others treated you or what the world told you to believe. You are defined by the standard you set for yourself, and that standard begins in the mind. If you let the mind wander, it will take you somewhere dark. But if you lead it with intention, with purpose, with truth, it will carry you to places you never thought possible. Control your focus, control your inputs, control your emotional interpretations, control the story you tell yourself every single day, not because it's easy, but because it's necessary. Because a weak mind will cost you a strong future, and a strong mind will carry you through storms that would break most people. That strength isn't built in comfort, it's built in the discipline of daily thought. It's built in the refusal to be ruled by fear, doubt, or reaction. It's built when you say no more to the noise and yes to the truth of who you really are. It's your time to reclaim your mind, to master the space within, because once you do that, once you truly own your inner world, nothing outside of you can take away your peace, your purpose, or your power. You become unshakable, unstoppable. So decide today, right now, not to hand over your mind to weakness ever again. Build it, discipline it, lead it, because when you control your mind, you control your life.